Well, I am in Cambodia at the site of the Angkor Temples, of course the most famous of which is Angkor Wat. But currently I'm at Angkor Thom, which was a large walled city, and at one point there were 1 million inhabitants that lived within the walls of the city. At the time London had 50,000, for example. And we're just walking through and exploring some of the ruins. There's a lot of restoration work being done to restore some of the temples, but in some of the quieter areas it's quite peaceful and quite interesting to walk. I'm in the Bayon Temple in Cambodia, and it's quiet here. At noon most of the tour groups go off to have lunch back in the city, so we get to enjoy the temples in peace and quiet. And here in the Bayon Temple we are surrounded by these gigantic faces that look at you from all directions. And the Khmer king at the time had this temple created, and it's said that the faces have more than a passing resemblance to the king himself. Cycling through the temples at Angkor and entering through the gates here of Angkor Thom. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day. It's a nice road for cycling. Sunset is coming soon, so we have the best light right now. And it's perfect temperature. It's a good place to be. Maybe I'll head and finally see Angkor Wat. I'm in Angkor Wat, which is the most famous and most intricate of all the Angkor temples. And it's actually still a bit of a mystery exactly what the temple was used for. I mean, it was a temple, it was probably a palace, it was probably the place where the king was buried as well. And outside of the gates of Angkor Wat once stood a town, which you don't see the remains of anymore because it was all wooden. Only the temple was made in stone and rock. But the town housed about 20,000 inhabitants as well at the height of the civilization. And here you see a lot of intricate bas-reliefs on the walls, which you don't find in some of the other temples. And there's a lot of stories, a lot of Indian-inspired, dedicated to Vishnu and Shiva, and all sorts of stories about the king and his army, and a lot of interesting tales within these walls.